Welcome everyone to Deep Dive presented by ThreatGEN. Deep Dive is a 30-minute weekly cybersecurity live stream show. I'm Gerald Auger, joined by Clint Bodungen, and we are bringing senior industry expertise to provide a deeper analysis and understanding of one specific cybersecurity current event. We encourage you to ask questions or lend your opinion as we take this deep dive together. If you're interested in this type of content, hit like and subscribe to show your support and to be made aware when new content drops weekly. Now let's get into this week's topic. Hey, what's up, Cybersecurity Central? Good to see you. Clint Bodungen, my man, how are you?
It's a Monday of a Friday.
It's a Monday of a
It is a
Friday. Couldn't
Monday
be
of a Friday. I need everybody in chat sending me some good luck for the weekend because it's been a doozy of a week for development.
for old Clint dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about this week, Clint? I'll tell you what. If you are attending Simply Cyber's First Things First, then you may remember this particular story. Essentially, the Ukrainian IT Army has taken Docker images and configured them in a way to be used in a distributed denial of service attack. Now, on the surface, this is a brilliant strategy by the IT Army, essentially allowing individuals who want to opt in to the cause, if you will, who don't have the technical chops to do it, to become a script kiddie and be able to lend their resources. Now, as we dug deeper into this story, we uncovered all sorts of additional things, including co-opting Docker engines that were not opting into the IT Army by choice, but compromising Docker engines. And the hilarious part is they're honeypots that they were compromising in order to bring them in. So right off the rip, Clint, what are your initial thoughts around what their what we'll call it the IT Army, the Ukrainian IT Army, kind of the leadership of the IT Army, if you will. What do you think of their strategy of employing this technique in increasing their weapon capability, if you will?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, both from a technical perspective as well as sort of the social geopolitical perspective. And I'll kind of give a broad overview of kind of my thoughts, and we can dig into any of those that you feel might be appropriate. So, number
Mm-hmm.
one, from the social geopolitical perspective, I kind of have a problem with what they did anyway, and I understand that they did this from a perspective of they got to survive. You got to do what you got to do. All's fair in love and war, right? And whenever you're trying to save yourself, save your country, it makes sense that you're going to deploy whatever tactics you can. And so that being said, take what I say with a grain of salt, but I don't agree with deploying the tactics that they did, packaging everything into a Docker and saying, "Here, use this, help us out," only because of the potential risk it puts on people that don't know what they're doing, don't understand, don't know how to protect themselves if they get exposed and then get targeted. So there's that, and we'll leave that for if we want to dig into that we can. But there's my opinion on that. Number two, from a technical perspective, it's brilliant, right? I mean, Dockers are easy to use, relatively speaking. They're easier than virtual machines. They're lighter than virtual machines. It's easy to weaponize something like this and say, here, take this. It's packaged. Go and click here, click here. And so anybody that does want to get involved, social geopolitical grievances on my part, my opinion aside, it's brilliant. But then that's originally what it was for, right? But then they went and leveraged the fact that Docker containers, Dockerization is it's relatively speaking, it's a brand new technology, right? I mean, it's only really been prevalent for the last few years. I think that people really started getting into it probably, shoot, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago, something like that, is when it really started to really emerge. And it's still a young technology. And so I equate this to Flash technology. Remember Flash and
Oh
Shockwave?
yeah.
So when that first came out, everybody was deploying it, using it, and it was great for games and animation and multimedia. But there was so much under the hood that caused and provided so many exploitable vulnerabilities, right? So, on that note, that's the problem with containers, is that they're easy to misconfigure. They're easy to leave yourself wide open, and that's what's being taken advantage of here to weaponize them unbeknownst to the user. And because they're becoming so proliferated and so widespread, and they're so easy to accidentally expose yourself, especially with the API, it's a brilliant strategy, and I think people need to focus more on Docker API security. So that was a
Yeah,
long-winded
absolutely.
overview. Sorry.
No. It's all good. It's all good. And thanks for joining us, everybody. We're talking about the Docker images that were basically weaponized by the IT Army. Now, I will tell you, as I dug into the story a little bit, they went and did everything that I was okay with, and then they did one thing that I wasn't okay with. Okay, so they're trying to amass as many people as they can to help their cause. By making the Docker image, you significantly reduce the level of technical aptitude required to contribute in this way. They also centralize it in a way where the management, if you will, of this is able to determine what the targets are and, mind you, update the targets by updating the Docker image and pushing updates down. You could see in the screenshot to the left, these are websites in Russia. And you could see mil.ru, kremlin.ru, RT, Russia Today, right? So these are major websites for Russia. And the idea is that the management can conscript, a large botnet, opt-in botnet, and have you help contribute to that target. Now, for all the reasons you said, Clint, it is a little dicey because let's say that I'm pro Ukraine and I'm going to install this Docker image from my house. I mean, does that really introduces some muddy waters of, is the United States now entering the war because some citizen from the United States is actively doing it? And now does Russia say, hey, you need to control your own population or we're going to take this as a sign of war? And all the complexities that will go with that. Now, the one thing that they did that I disagree with, and I can't imagine, the one thing they did that I disagree with is they took exploitation and found vulnerable Docker containers on the internet, exploited them, pushed these images on them, and then turned them on to have those machines go in. Now, this is the signature of a malicious botnet that you have built without the consignment or authority of the owner of the system that is now part of that botnet. And this is what criminals do, right? So now you're committing a criminal action versus with the low orbit ion cannon that I've been calling it, where it used to be like SETI folding at home. If there's anybody a little bit older in here, you used to be able to like have a screensaver that would fold proteins and do some math calculations for the SETI project. By offering this as an opportunity for you to opt in, I'm fine with it. Politically moved aside, hackback moved aside, just the idea that here is something that you can do if you're interested in it. When you start exploiting machines and forcefully conscripting them into your army, that's where I draw the line. And that's what they did here. So they kind of have two factions working in unison for this attack. One is volunteer base and one is exploited machines.
There's one thing that I would like to comment on. You said it earlier, and I think this was something that maybe you felt like was, I don't know, you were okay with this part, but it's the whole aspect of, what if a U.S. citizen is blamed for, what if they basically consider U.S. citizen to get into the war, control your citizens, you're in the war now because
Yep.
a U.S. citizen did. And I would have to say, on one hand, I mean, obviously, if you have some unscrupulous, nation state that says, so let's just say, what if Russia uses that, whether it's valid or not, what they may be able to use that. But I would say that on the other hand, it's like, do we do that? We don't go and say, I mean, I guess we do, but we don't claim it's war, but we don't go and tell Russia, hey, control your citizens, control your malware gangs, control that are creating all this ransomware campaign stuff. Now, that being said, I guess, we often attribute the campaigns uh, that are Russian created to the government. We basically make claims to say, well, it could just be Russian actors. It could be citizens. It could just be someone like the Chinese posing as the Russians to make it look like it's the Russians. So we're careful about attribution. So we really don't go to Russia and say control your citizens. I think Biden and both Trump and Biden made some threats at one point, kind of saying we're going to take action. But we, as far as I know, don't say what happens from a Russian citizen or a crime syndicate is the Russian government. I would think they wouldn't do the same to us. But again, my final thought on that is if anybody's looking for a reason, they're going to find a reason, and that would give them a reason, right? So,
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of really interesting comments in chat relative to the attribution element of this. James mentions, what's stopping a U.S. citizen from going to Ukraine and fighting. I know for a fact there are U.S.
yeah.
citizens, ex-military, who love the war theater, who have gone over there to fight. And his argument is, how is it any different to say that the U.S. has got involved? Um, Bob actually mentioned something that I really want to key in on as soon as I find it. Where's Bob? Here it is. So by introducing this centralized management of targets, you better believe that the whoever is in charge of the IT Army or this particular operation better be really good with their OPSEC and with their InfoSec, because you build this distributed weapon effectively. And guys, remember, some of these machines are compromised. They don't even know. They're just being like zombie controlled to attack. Some people are opting into it. But if the head of the snake, for lack of a better term, gets compromised and these targets get changed to whitehouse.gov or Ukrainian targets or whatever, all of a sudden it's very, very trivial to turn the blast cannon, if you will, back on itself and have, it makes me think of like an old cartoon where Bugs Bunny slaps the rifle around and Elmer Fudd shoots himself, or Daffy Duck shoots himself and gets that blast back in his face. So you've got to be very careful with this thing.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, and but I do agree with the perspective of, kind of what's the difference. We do have US over there. We have Canadians over there. Nobody's going to blame the Canadians for anything, but they'll blame the US. But so, yeah, I agree with that. And we can talk about this from the social and geopolitical perspective all day long. Let's see if we can dive a little bit into the technical aspects of it.
Yep.
And so I think, and I didn't dig too deep into it, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm not an expert on Docker containers and or Dockerization at all. And I'm calling it Dockerization. That should tell you right there. I'm not an expert in it, but I know a little bit about API hacking, and my career was not exposed. See, I made him leave. He just left right there. That should tell you something. But I'm my red teaming career is, I'm not specialized in web hacking. It's mostly network and ICS and not web. So API hacking is also not my forte. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the automation that we're talking about, taking control of Dockers to create this botnet, it was done through API hacks, right?
It was, yeah. My understanding is that, well, you can see right here that the Linux sockets were open on port 2375. So I don't even know if this wasn't like a technical hack with like some elite zero cool acid burn situation going on. It was very much a Docker container configured to be open to the internet. And because of the power of Docker and APIs, you can have it proactively reach out and pull a new Docker image. You can push a Docker image to it if you have like kind of a a centralized management of Docker images all over the place. Especially if you're dealing like in a real practical scenario where you have multiple images in multiple locations and you want to maintain it in kind of a CI/CD kind of DevOps implementation, you want to be able to push updates and stuff like that. And effectively, my understanding is that some of these honeypots, coincidentally, they were targeting honeypots, were open because they're honeypots. They
Yeah.
want to get attacked. And they were able to get into that port. And somehow, I don't know if the honeypots were configured to prevent lateral movement or see what's going on, but they would get in and then pull down the new image and start DOSing, which was basically just pushing traffic at these URLs. I mean, it's not rocket science what they were doing once they were doing it. It's very simple what they were doing. They were just doing a lot of it from many locations.
Yeah, and I think, that's one of the downsides of having honeypots, right? Is that you want to let people in. So I think there's a lesson learned here, and that if you are going to open up honeypots and you're going to invite that in, because obviously you want to study malicious behavior, and also maybe as a canary for your own network, you want to make sure you're monitoring the traffic, especially outbound traffic, because there is a trend right now of honeypots actually being used for botnets because they're so easy to compromise. And so I think the lesson there is, number one, you definitely want to monitor your honeypot traffic for DDoS type behavior. And number two, you want to make sure that you're resetting your honeypots on a regular basis, or resetting your images, resetting or basically going back to your golden image on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I mean, you can like this is a so the two names of the Docker images are Stop Russia and I think Stop Propaganda were the Docker image names. And you can see, I mean, I just Googled this on GitHub, and right there you can pull from Alpine Bombardier off of Docker, and then launch the app and run it. So I'm not 100% sure. I'll continue digging in, but these things are out there, and you can you can still opt into them. See, the thing is, again, I'm not an expert on Docker, so I know when I've done the Raspberry Pi labs with Docker images, I've gone to like the Docker official site, which kind of has, like, for lack of a better term, like a Docker store, so people can make Docker images, push them up.
Your audio went out. Was that you or me? Did Jerry go out, or am I not hearing? Yep. Yeah. All right. See, yet again, my audio is good and my video's more crispy. Let's make Jerry spicy. Yeah, we're gonna have to do this again. So we did this on a stream um, before, when we did the streaming, the red versus blue, and his audio went out, and so I started doing the voiceover for his lip movements. So we're gonna have to see if we can do that. There he goes. Oh, I have no audio. What do I do? I think he's telling me to shut up. So yeah, we kind of did this before. So let's while I'll jump in here, and I think, and there's a delay. We do have the typical YouTube delay. Um, what you know, coming from our audience, what's the experience level here with Dockers? Because I think if we're going to do a deep dive here, talking about and he's going to reboot. If we're going to do a deep dive on the situation with Dockers, I think it also makes sense to kind of get a bit of an assessment of what's the level of experience from the audience in terms of, because I think what we wanted to do is try to cover some lessons learned, and how, if you're going to use Dockers, how are you deploying them and what do you do to protect yourself? And I can actually show you. um, there are a couple links, and I will post them real quick. There are a couple links here that I found, and I think, where's the original? Here we go. So um, I just started reading through this. It's very simple, And I'm not advocating or endorsing this course, the certification or whatever, but I did find these pages, these articles useful, and you can start here.
Are you sharing your screen?
No, I'm going to share this. So just catch a screenshot and you can type it in your browser. But um, this is a really useful article series, and I think there's 5 on securing and even pen testing your Dockers. And so I think that this could be valuable to a lot of people. And what you can also do is the series goes through lesson 1, lesson 2. When you Google these, just type this. Just go through, and instead of me posting every single one of the links, yeah, then you can literally just post this for the next one. So just type that into Google and it'll automatically find lesson 2. It automatically forwards that URL will forward to lesson 2. Then type in lesson -3. It forwards lesson 3, and there's 5 of them. So just do that. It's a pretty good article series on the basics of Docker security and even pen testing Dockers.
Yeah, I dropped the link in chat. I've got it pulled up here so you know what it looks like, people.
I just wanted to drop it in the captions because not everybody gets the LinkedIn viewers won't get the link in chat.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, Docker is powerful. I just again, I don't know what happened with my audio there. So Clint, thanks for maintaining sanity while I got that sorted out.
It's what I do. If you're Gerald Auger, you lose audio. It's what you do.
Oh my God, brutal, brutal. I thought we were beyond these audio issues, but anyways.
What's this we? You have a mouse in your pocket?
Okay. Yes. Yes. I thought when I joined ThreatGEN, I got rid of my audio problems. But hey,
Just
Karen, yeah, I'm glad you can. You don't see it in chat. You should see it, Christopher Ward. I can also post it on Discord if that's what you're into. Here, I'll post it in Discord right now. The Simply Cyber Discord. Link to Docker.
James says shots fired. I mean, what do you expect from a company that's named ThreatGEN? Come on.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I guess just to round out, I do find this is the first documented instance I've heard of using Docker, containerizing essentially a prepackaged weapon, quote unquote cyber weapon, and then making it available on to the masses. Now, just off the cuff, I can't think of another time where there was like a really crowdsourced need for this. I guess back in the day, like 2014, 15, during like the Occupy Wall Street stuff, when Anonymous was going bananas and kind of enlisting people, there was like a big fervor of people wanting to support Anonymous and be part of Anonymous. That would have been another opportunity, but I don't know if Docker was far enough along at that point. I mean, that might even have been like 2012 or 13 when Anonymous was in its heyday. So
Yeah.
I
Earlier than
guess what
that.
I would say is I feel like precedent has been set, Clint, for a viable way to get script kiddies basically on board and almost kind of mitigate the need for them to know anything because you can centrally manage it and update the targets, etc.
Yeah, I mean, it's the typical crime syndicate model, right? I mean, like drug dealers, you have your shot callers, and then you get your street kids distributing and everything. I mean, that's how crime syndicates work. But and it doesn't stop at just malware DDoS, right? I mean, you can have people think about, and I hope I'm giving people ideas, but I mean, this can extend to command and control servers. This can extend
Mm-hmm.
to a whole host of ways of delivering malware, delivering DDoS, delivering relays and proxies through. This whole thing, this it all started back in the day using Dockers as crypto mining. They were maximizing, they were turning hacked Dockers into crypto miners. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just going to evolve. It's going to going to become a bigger problem. So, but I mean, it's on two fronts, right? You have the ability to take a simple malware or DDoS or command and control distribution mechanism and put it in the hands of anybody easily. And then you also have the issue of, what if I'm using Dockers? And now am I at risk of unwittingly becoming a distribution mechanism? And by the
Yeah,
way,
and go ahead.
just so you, yeah, we now that we're pairing the ThreatGEN and the Simply Cyber chats over to one another, completely forgot about the aspect to where if we chat here locally on ThreatGEN, then the Simply Cyber chat won't get it. That's what's happening. That's why some people didn't get the link.
Yeah, well, and it's good as we troubleshoot. Like I've got Simply Cyber's feed up on a different monitor over here, and I'm happy to drop links and stuff in there.
Okay.
But thanks for the feedback, guys. Bob, Bob wants to know if this could be a resume for hands-on training. I mean, technically, if you don't point out that you're using it to attack another country, I think you could spin
Depends
it
on
in
the
a way.
country. I mean, if I'm a hiring manager, I mean, I might actually, hire you as a pen tester if you say you went and like took down something in North Korea or something. Who knows?
Exactly. So, Clint, just as a quick aside, do you know is Docker or Docker containerization or anything happening in the ICS space?
Ah, funny you should say that. So, um, so a friend of mine who I used to work with in a former life, Brian Foster, did an excellent presentation at S422 2 weeks ago on using containerization. I like to say Dockerization because nobody's saying it, and I want to leave my legacy by coining weird phrases. But Brian Foster, and I hope you're in the chat listening, but he did an excellent. I hope somebody saw that presentation. But Dale Peterson, who runs, maintains, he founded S4. He will eventually release those videos. And when he does, I think we should make a point to post the video of Brian's talk on containerization. So it's not widespread, but it is starting. In fact, I really think that Brian is starting the movement in using containerization in ICS. I think it has merit. I think it has a lot of merit.
Well, good. All right. Well, then, it's even more reason if you're interested in digging into this particular story, you can pull this Docker container down. I mean, it's not a super complicated Docker container, but you could pull it down and look at it and see how they configured it, see how they used it.
I just did.
It could help. What?
I just did. I joined the army.
Oh, there you go. And like I'm saying, like just as a proof of concept. And by the way, if you are looking for work, like I think it would be really interesting if you mentioned in an interview, like, oh, like first of all, you're bringing up the fact that this is a current event that you know about, right? So that means you're obviously staying abreast. The fact that you pulled the Docker container down and looked at it and understood how it worked, that to me as a hiring manager indicates initiative, indicates curiosity, capability to understand that you would pull it down, to pull it down, and you killed me. To pull it down and be able
Sorry.
to analyze it and stuff like that. So I would encourage you if you've got. I mean, literally, it would take you 10 minutes to pull the Docker down and look at it. So that could be really interesting for resume beefing.
Yeah, but
But
again, be careful. I mean,
yeah, be careful.
I
Obviously.
personally really don't recommend. Look, as much as I support Ukraine in terms of, you know, their what's happening to them is terrible. I really don't support downloading this Docker container and using it to join the fight against them because there are so many repercussions that could happen.
Yeah, and please understand my my recommendation is based on academic curiosity, not pull it down, look at it, then destroy it. Not pull it down, look at it, then enable it. Please, again, for all the reasons that we've laid out in this story. All right, so
You
that
have
was a
radar,
fast.
right?
What's that?
Do you have on the radar right now, right?
No, the radar has been
Oh,
canceled
okay,
today,
okay, okay.
unfortunately.
Just looking out
We've had
for
to
you.
cancel it, but no, I appreciate it. One second. All right, guys. So this has been Deep Dive with myself, Gerald Auger, and Clint Bodungen. We hope you got value out of this, and if you did, please hit subscribe, hit like. The like helps us know that you like this content. The subscribe helps tell others that there is value coming out of this channel. And, it means a lot to us. And it's an easy way to say thank you. This is good stuff. We appreciate it. Join us next week at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next episode of Deep Dive. And normally, if you'd like to keep the party going, you could go over to Radar, but unfortunately, that has been canceled for today. So, unfortunately, we will have to wait until next Friday for Eric Taylor, Mike Jones, and myself to dish on what is on our radar. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this week. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Take care.